You're listening to the Frequency and Flow podcast with Brie Kirk. In this episode, I'm speaking with Heather Kornman of the Golden Triangle, all about how she can build her brand new business authentically as a manifester. So let's dive in. All right, you guys, this conversation that I had with Heather was so amazing. Heather Kornman of the Golden Triangle is just such a beautiful, beautiful soul. I met her through the Elevate the Globe, Elevated Mastermind Collective community. And she's starting this business all about just how to love Mother Earth through these different pillars. And she's at the very, very beginning stages of starting her business, and also at the same time at the very, very beginning stages of understanding her human design. When we hopped on this conversation, pretty much all she knew is that she was a manifester, didn't know much other than that. And her vision was really about how to, or her question, the reason that I had her on today was how she could build her business and like start to grow and build and expand her business in a way that was authentic with her energy and her soul purpose. And I feel like we barely scratched the surface, but it was such a great conversation of helping her understand her true power as a manifester and how the business that she's been building is just so aligned with her own energy already, but then how she can keep that, like hold that authenticity as she continues to grow and expand. It is such a fun conversation. I love speaking with Heather, and I hope you enjoy this conversation as well. Hello and welcome to the Frequency and Flow podcast with Brie Kirk. Today I have a super exciting guest, Heather Kornman of the Golden Triangle. Heather, how are you today?
I'm so excited to be here.
Great. Well, good. So I just want to dive right in. Like, why don't you share with our audience a little bit about yourself and your journey and where you're at in your business today?
I am Heather, and I am a mom. I've got two little ones at home. They're not here with me now. They're with grandma. And I'm married to an awesome rock and roll spiritual guy. And I am first and foremost a gardener, and that is a big part of the journey of kind of what got me to starting the Golden Triangle. So gardening is a big piece of the Golden Triangle. I want to be able to offer garden designs for people to create like a sustainable, edible garden in their own space, whatever that space is. I live in Los Angeles in the suburbs, so I have a small plot of earth that I'm able to cultivate a lot of produce from, and I want to be able to share that with people. Like when I was living in an apartment, I was still able to have a little something on my balcony. When we had a little bit larger of a yard, I was able to have a little bit more, and so just show people that you can grow your own food. You may still have to buy your own vegetables at the store too, but you can grow your own food and know what that's like. And then a big piece of the Golden Triangle too is also on that earth sustainability. I want to be able to offer a home cleaning, home products refill shop to the South Bay where I live in Los Angeles. And I originally thought that I wanted it to be a brick and mortar shop. That changed and evolved as I kept working with it, doing my breath work and meditations to try to stay open and clear with what exactly it was supposed to look like. And so it turned into a traveling refill shop that's going to be hopefully coming out very soon. I'm very close. I'm going to get an old school bus and turn it into like this beautiful shop on wheels with plants and wood and refills, and I'll come and service people around. And so that's kind of where I'm at now, is just like the final stages of getting all the details together so that I can offer that out. And then the garden design has been already happening. I'm designing 2 gardens right now for one for my children's school, and then one for a resident who's got a little patch of earth in the front of her house, and we're gonna turn it into this like little flower dreamland for her kids to have flowers to pick and a little playhouse to make little flower pies, and then for her to have a few vegetables and herbs to cultivate in her garden. And so that's kind of where I'm at now.
Awesome. That's so exciting. I really am excited for this conversation because just because of the like not only do you have this like local feel, I just like and I really love the message behind everything. Or it's like you have such a strong theme, like even though you have different aspects to the golden triangle, like everything really comes together. And I know it's still new, so like things are still kind of coming together, but I just having known you now for a few months, like I've seen how some of the little pieces of like, like you said, it's like you had an idea to do this and maybe not, and now you're, it's like things are still kind of coming together. So it's such a fun time to really explore your own human design. So speaking of that, I'm just curious, what's your experience so
Yeah,
far
so
with
not
human
much.
design?
That's so I'm one of the reasons I'm so excited to get to be here. I had been called to human design over the last year and just like went and did a free online chart. I like called my mom, like, what's all my birth info? And she gave it to me. And bless her heart for saving all that. And so I just looked at it and it said that I was a manifester. So I'm curious to see if you found the same. I that resonated with me because I've felt pretty powerful being able to manifest things. I used to think very small with it. Like when teaching is in my background, I was a preschool and kindergarten teacher prior to staying home with my
Oh.
kids. And it would be random things like I would be like, oh, I really need some more like wooden boxes for my classroom to store blocks and things in so they're not just like, all over the floor. And then like the next day I'd be driving and someone would have like put out wooden boxes out to like their trash that were like exactly what I pictured. So that's like such like a small thing, but I think that it shows that it's powerful. It's all the same. Like it's just putting that energy out there. So that's as far as I got. And then here I am with you.
Awesome. That's so great. I love it. It's so funny because for anyone who's like listening who Oop, that was a little echo. Anyone who's listening who is very new to human design, even if you're not a manifestor, like everybody has the ability to manifest. But something about manifestors is they have, of the 9 centers in your human design chart, they have one of those centers has a channel directly to the throat. So it is like, I'm like, it's like the what is the word I'm thinking of? It's like quick action, like quick because it's like if you have a desire or you have like an energy or an intention to something, it just connects directly to that throat. And it's like things happen really quickly, like not just with what you desire, but in terms of like taking action and getting things done and kind of moving people in the right direction. Which is like such a cool thing about being a manifester is that it's very much like you speak, it's like you're kind of the cutting edge or the of the like collective where you see things and you say them and you inspire people into action. So it's like the universe, not just the universe, but like you inspire people into action to kind of create the vision that you have.
Yeah, I feel that, and
Yeah.
I didn't
You're
like,
like,
and
yeah.
it's reminding me of one of your previous podcasts that I listened to that was talking about that, and I totally resonated with that as well.
Yeah. I love that because too, especially because what you're doing is you're not starting a movement, but you are like one of I feel like the movement of like using a lot of like, not renewables, but like refills and really like the urban gardening and getting back into, like getting your hands in the ground. Like that's not necessarily a new thing, but it is like new for most of the world, or it's like and so you kind of being on the edge of that is such a cool thing because I think you like that's kind of your manifestor energy in action as you see like where things are heading, and you're the one that's kind of not starting the movement, but like you're one of the fire starters of the movement especially in your
Yeah,
area.
that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think bringing in, just like you said, that the urban gardening piece, which is such a great way to catchphrase it. That's totally what it is urban gardening. And yeah, exactly. And just like you said, like, not I'm not like the first one to start it by any means. And but that fire that you said so resonates with me too, because you need like more than just one piece of kindling generally to get a fire going. So how beautiful if we can just all be in there together and then create this giant fire for us all to be in.
Yeah. I think the other interesting thing, which like when it comes to just your brand and, actually I haven't even gotten to the point like what I got so excited I just jumped right in, but what's the big question that you want to answer
Yeah,
today
so
through
what
your
I'm
human
thinking is,
design?
just as we're talking about that, I'm at the beginning really phase of like forming this business and brand to all come together. I want to stay authentic. So what I'm wondering is, how can I authentically connect with my clients to create the most growth and expansion possible while staying true to my authentic self and soul purpose?
Yeah, I love this. And I was getting ahead of myself. I forgot I hadn't even asked you to state your question because I was just already rolling into it because I like really want to dive in. So you're the first manifester that I've spoken to on in terms of an interview on our podcast. And I like personally love manifestors because it's just such a unique energy. Manifestors are less than 10% of the population. So you're already kind of unique and like very just special. And I mean, every type is special, but there's like a uniqueness to manifestors that I just absolutely love. And I think with the business that you're creating and with that energy, it's like we were just talking about being that like leading edge. And so it's like being authentic to you, like is something where like what also is unique about manifestors is like your energy is like is very bold, like naturally very bold. Like your authentic energy is bold. Like you're gonna say things and do things that either people absolutely love or they absolutely hate, and that's totally okay. Like that's good. That's a good thing. That means you're like really living into your energy as long as it's like what you believe, like the whatever you're feeling, whatever you're called to, like as long as you're staying really like authentic to yourself and then not just in your own bubble, but like what you're saying and putting out into the world, like that's where you're at your strongest energy, like your most
Yeah,
potent
that sounds
energy.
like the story of my life. Very like some people like, oh, they're so polarizing. I feel like some people, I definitely have like always triggered people since I was like a wee little nugget, just like playing with my sand toys or whatever. People would just my energy, it would either really trigger them and bring stuff up inside them, or they were like, oh, there's this like bright light, I just want to be with her. It is That's so right on.
Yeah. I think, well, then that's good because I think one of the big blocks that manifestors have, or as they are just starting, is they're scared of making people angry. They're scared of pissing people off. And so it sounds like, I mean, not to say that you don't have that, but if you feel like that you've always kind of been dealing with that, like that, or you know how to handle that, or just not care, like who cares? People just aren't going to like me. Like that's like the best energy that you can have in general. And I think as that translates to your business, a lot of what you're marketing, and we haven't even gotten into specifics about like what you're doing at this point. I know your business still is like getting formed, but like what you're doing in terms of your marketing, but it's like you should be saying like it's almost like you write your content from a way of like, yeah, I'm going to make people angry with this. It's almost like you want to do things like say things without like just being flippant about it, but it's like what from your belief and your like the direction is going you want to trigger people, it's like you almost want to get people who are like yes yes, like it like makes them just love you even more, or the people who just aren't right for you that are kind of like meh, like it just they're like okay, she's not for me, whatever, it's like that's kind of where you want to get to be with. So I see so much potential with like as you start doing more marketing for your business of like
Sorry, my dog. See another dog.
um,
Sorry.
yeah. So it's okay. And so it happens, life. And so like I almost see there being good like such potential and such magic of like you just coming from the energy of like what can I say that might trigger people, you know, or like might, and again, I don't mean this in like a bad way, but like that's going to get people either really excited or be like, no, she's not for me. And just starting to create content from that
Yeah, I don't know
place.
if I've ever gone about life like trying to trigger people. So that would be like a different way. But I think maybe it's just also knowing that since I'm so passionate about what I'm doing, no matter what, there's gonna be people out there that it doesn't resonate with, that it triggers. It just naturally happens too. So but I'm hearing too to just be really authentic with how I market, and not let the like naysayers get like to block me, right?
Yeah. And maybe triggering is like not the right word or the right context. Like I almost think, you know, it's especially when it comes, because it's like in your personal life, you said like, you know, you're like, yeah, I'm used to just saying things and not censoring myself. So it's like when it comes to your business, like I'll always kind of have the awareness, like, am I censoring myself? Am I trying to like hold myself back to please more people or just not? You know, it's like just actively removing that filter, like just really being authentic and not really caring if, you know, it's going to offend people. You know, it's like taking that energy where you're just like so assured of yourself and in your beliefs and in your direction, and like just making sure that you continue to have that in your business. Like, even though, because I think there's a tendency with marketing, especially, is like, you know, you want to appeal to your large audience, you want to create a community, and then you like dampen your energy because you just don't want to offend people. But that's actually doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think when you were talking, it was making me think of, I think, yes, when I'm working on my Instagram page for my business, I am, oh, I need this one to look like more professional than my personal page. So that's kind of like the message that was coming through to me. Like, I just need to be me. It's the business that I'm building anyways. So it's okay if I
Mm-hmm.
breathe that into it, however it ends up looking, as long as I'm being authentic.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think the other big thing too with being a manifester is that you're gonna have, so you're not like some of the other types like generators and manifesting generators, they have more innate like energy sources to them. So where they just are able to do things. As a manifester, you're gonna have cycles where you're gonna have a lot of energy and a lot of momentum and a lot of like action, like getting things done, but that's also going to be balanced with like a lot of rest. So you go through every type, like every person goes through cycles, but you're going to have like creative cycles, especially, that you've either already noticed or that you'll notice, where it's like, and cycles where it's like you're not just going to like feel and take action, but then you're always going to come back to this like, okay, what do I need to release? And I almost heard you saying that earlier when you were introducing your business, of like, and maybe this is even before we started recording, but where you're like, yeah, I thought I was going to go this direction and have a physical storefront, and that just doesn't feel like it anymore. So it's like something where it like gathered energy, you explored it, you started like thinking about it, and then you kind of like, you know, when you hit that rest cycle, you reflected on it and you're like, you know what, that's not it, I'm just going to release it. And that's like a very natural part of that creative cycle, that flow of creative, where there's like, you're inspired, you're going to take some action to start feeling it out, and then you're going to have a period of reflection, and then you might be letting things go, or you might have some reflection, be like, no, this is still right, like I'm okay, and then you go through that cycle again. And so it's like if your energy kind of waxes and wanes, I mean, I know you work with the moon cycle, so you're familiar with this to an extent, but I feel like specific to just your creative flow is like, that's a very manifestor thing, to have those cycles that are more pronounced than maybe some other people might feel them. Or like if you look outside of yourself and it feels like people are constantly like doing things and like building momentum and like going up, and you don't feel yourself doing that, it's kind of like, this is your permission to like allow yourself those cycles, because it makes, you know, makes you stronger, which, you know, but you know, it's like, it's also part of, it's like what you're meant to do. You're even more potent when you're at those highs, you know, versus someone who's constantly like driving forward and doesn't have those rest
Yeah,
cycles.
that's so on point. That's exactly how I flow, and I definitely always need those times of rest, and sometimes it's just like a day and I'm like, wow, I just really needed to be inward and rest and be still, which I'm not still when I'm in my, like creative flow. I'm very like active and moving. So yes, and I feel like that's like ebb and flow has always really resonated with me, that term. And I think that's because that's a big piece of me is I ebb and I flow. And it's giving myself that time to rest is such an important part, because I have found that if I try to force the creativity in those times, it's not as potent. It's not really that's me not being authentic then. So having that time.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole
Yeah.
goal,
And I
right? Is to be
I
authentic.
didn't share that I
Um,
with the gardening that I use. Yes, the structure I use is gardening with the moon cycles. And I found starting that as my structure, well, my garden just began to be so abundant. And everything grew for the most part. And working with the garden with my moon cycles, I started realizing that really the moon cycles move me a lot too. And I feel very connected to the moon. And I will find that in those calm times, like the full moon and the new moon are very polarizing for me. And I can really feel the difference in the energy for them. And so I just allow myself to rest when I need to with the moon and be bright when I need to with the moon.
I love that. I love that. You're already like, this is just validating what you've already discovered for yourself in some ways. So I love that. Um, so I guess one thing that I'm kind of curious about, I mean, I know you, but this is also kind of for the audience or whoever's listening as well, is what are you doing right now to market or grow your business or expand your business? Because that was part of your question. So I'd love for you to just kind of share what you're doing right now from like a marketing and maybe even
Yeah,
branding
so
perspective.
for branding, I worked with a gal that helped me design a logo, because I really felt like as this was there wasn't like a physical space yet for like the bus isn't here yet to create that. I was like I felt like I needed something very grounding to like stamp the business, and so we worked on some fun logo designs, and there's like a couple different versions of them. And so that I'm using that to start my Instagram page, which is up. Although there's very little content, I'm just really working on like my highlight covers, and making sure that the color scheme goes really with that logo. So that's in there. And then, so that's kind of really like on the web, all that there is. I don't know if you say like the web anymore, but maybe it's
Mhm.
online. um, and so for me, also, like tech savvy is my growth edge. So I connect with like face to face. So, and since this is going to be a locally run business, I've been connecting with people just face to face. Like people are like, oh, what are you like doing? And it just kind of has like when it organically comes up in conversation, has been perfect. And that's kind of how I got my first garden design client was well, actually, she came to me many moons ago. She had seen my front yard garden, and I have a front yard garden because that's where I have my space. That's the quintessential like urban garden.
Yeah.
Um, and had asked if I would help design her garden. I wasn't ready yet then. And so then when it all kind of came together of like, oh, this is how the gardening and the refills and the goods are going to fit together, I was ready to create on that energy. And so then I circled back with her and she's like, yes, awesome. Please like come design my garden. So just right now kind of is like by word of mouth, by connecting, and really as where we met in the Elevated Mastermind Collective, that's been like a great place for me making connections and just really getting to experiment with posting on the social media challenge that you've been hosting in a lovingly way, has been so great because I've been using my personal Instagram account to get comfortable in that tech savvy side. So it's kind of like I'm in the practice marketing phase is
Awesome.
how I feel.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I mean, you got to start somewhere. And as we were talking about, even before we started recording, since this podcast for me is pretty new, and I'm like, yeah, there's going to be tech mess ups. There's going to be things I say incorrectly, but you just have to get started because you're never going to know and you're never going to practice through it until you do it. And so I think that's just like part of the reason I love having you on this podcast too, is just because I do talk to a lot of people who have more established businesses. And like you'll hear some of the guest interviews that come out before this one are people that have more established businesses. But that doesn't mean that there's not value. Like there's value, well, of course, in any stage of business that you're at, but also like using human design at any stage of business you're at, or like referencing that and just kind of using that as your guideposts to help you really just make sure that you're building. It's like a soul, like you said, your sole purpose. It's a soul business that you're building and not just building something that, you know, may or may not make money, but you're not really happy with. Cause a lot of us, you know, a lot of people that I talk to, myself included, choose to leave, like left the corporate life because we just I didn't like what I was doing, you know, and I feel like a lot of people are like that. And it's like, then why would we build a business that do the same, that does
Yeah,
that anyways?
totally.
So anyways,
Totally.
that's my
Totally agree
soapbox.
with that. And also, it's so funny because I left teaching to stay at home with my family, and I actually manifested a whole new reality for myself where I could stay home with my family, be like comfortable where I'm at, really work on building this little mini urban homestead that I'm creating so that I wouldn't. My plan was to not go back to work, actually. I was planning on this was going to be my thing.
Yeah.
And that goes right into it, is totally justified in what you're saying as being the manifester. So I like created all that, like rested on it, created, like we moved into this new property that has like a bigger space for me to garden and gonna have chickens, and I'm homeschooling the kids, and it's like all like exactly what I manifested. And then I'm like resting in it, loving in it, and then bam, I'm like, oh, I got to start this whole business. And then it just, you know, and then I sat on that for a little while too and let it, as you know, evolve. But so yeah, I don't know, that just came to me right now.
No, I mean, that's just you living into your design for sure. And I think a big part of, especially a manifester, is the divine timing of, I mean, it's for everyone for sure. But I think as soon as you try to force something, it's just not going to happen, or it's not going to happen as well. One thing that you brought up that I think too is really like in terms of how you put yourself out there, or like, well, there's actually a couple things. One thing in human design is your profile, which to me is it's like how you connect to others and how others connect to you. So like in terms of a business, it's like how do you draw your ideal people into you, and how do you like build connection with them, not just like, oh, my post reached this many people, but like how do you like build that relationship with people. And your profile, so there's two numbers to it. There's a 1 and a 3 in yours, like two numbers 1 through 6, and yours is 1 3. And so for you, like basically a lot of, I think when it comes to like kind of connecting to that and building your message and your brand, and like as you start to grow that, and you know, as you're out in the community, a lot of what you do is like, so the 1 is about just your knowledge. So it's like the knowledge that you've gotten through, you know, just all the things like you said, moon cycles and building your garden, and like you have this huge knowledge of everything that you've learned as a homesteader. The 3 is about like experimenting and like trial and error stuff. And so I see this so beautifully that as you start to like put your brand more out there, like even whatever online, or even in as you talk to local businesses and connect with local businesses, it's like, oh, oh my gosh, Siri
I
just like
didn't
said
hear it.
something random to me. Okay, it was weird. Like I heard it in my ear. I was like, whoa. But I think that like you sharing your story and like the things that you've learned and the things that you now know and like all of this stuff, and just like really putting it out there, and like putting that manifestor boldness behind it, like that is what's really going to like connect, like that's what's going to connect with people. And that's, I think that is going to kind of create that feedback cycle where those people are going to find you and they're going to be like, you're going to blow their minds, like, wow, I can homestead when I live in a super urban place that I barely have space for anything. And like that's just gonna, then you're gonna get that feedback, and that's gonna just like feed you, and that's gonna like kind of, you know, that's how it's gonna grow.
Oh, I love that so much. And I love that trial and error piece. I feel like that's something that I could definitely bring in more of, like, you know, like when a plant does get sick or something and doesn't work, and with like the refill side, like things that have worked for me and didn't work for me and things that's making me noodle on some ideas for sure.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's not just like the things that you do, the trial and error. I feel like it's also going to, because you like you as the manifestor, the energy behind the brand, it's also like your own trial and error. Like, what about homesteading? Like, what did you try that didn't, it's like people want to know that part of your journey. And like, yeah, I failed. Like, it's like this three number is kind of like, there's almost a sense of humor at underlying it, because it's like, yeah, I tried this and I failed. And this is what I learned from it. And this is how I'm doing it differently. And kind of like that honesty and vulnerability is like what helps with that connection piece. And it like so it's just like like that's kind of your connection gift of that, like these numbers, this one and this three is like really about, it's like everyone can connect by sharing that, but for you it's like something different. It just connects with people on a different level.
That's so helpful. I didn't know what my numbers were. I needed that info.
Yeah. The profile. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things, like you might see it now, but it's not like most people when they focus on human design, they focus on the type, which is an easy way to just get into it. But there's so many layers of human, like we're barely scratching the surface here. Like there's so many layers. There's your profile, there's your authority, there's like gates and channels and centers and like all of these things. And it's like, but the type is good to just get started. The profile, I think, is something that's really great, especially for entrepreneurs to focus on, because that is how you like connect with people. It's not just like reach people. It's like how you actually connect with people and establish relationships with them, which if you have a business, that's an extremely important part of having a business that, makes money, is not just a hobby. And which hobbies are great. Yeah. And so I think that I love focusing on this when I talk, especially to newer like anyone, but when you're newer, it's like knowing that that's kind of what you can focus on when it comes to your marketing content. Or just how you present yourself when you walk into a business that you want to partner with. It's kind of like, just kind of understanding that is like your signature, your energy signature or connection signature.
Yeah, I know. That sounds so great. So the one is my knowledge and the three is the trial and error. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the one is really about like the foundation of knowledge that you have. And it's like how you take different things and combine them together in new ways.
Oh, I
and like sharing that. So do you have like a framework that you use? Do you have like, is it something where you're like, oh, I noticed this like about the moon, it's like the example for me is like, oh, I noticed the moon cycle. And when I connected my gardening, what I knew about gardening, and I started doing those together, and all of a sudden my garden took off. Like to me, that's kind of a very one, like that's kind of the three, but that's also kind of a one thing too, where it's like you had two different bodies of knowledge and you applied them or like integrated them together in your own way. And it's like now you have this new system that you work within. Like to
well,
me,
and
that's a
that's
very
the
one
golden
thing.
triangle, like all together, Brie, right? Because that's why I was stuck for a little while, because I was like, well, I'm a gardener, like, so I'm going to be a gardener, but then I really felt like I need to have a refill shop. And so I was like kind of stuck for a little while on how to merge those together. And then I was like, oh, I just merged them together. Like it's all about like loving Mother Earth. And so they do go together so beautifully. And so I feel like that falls into that as well.
Totally. And that actually kind of circles us back to the beginning with like being a manifester is breaking rules. Like that's a very manifester thing, like that boldness, and also like creating your own rules and doing things, it's like, yeah, I want to focus on these two things because they come together. And it, like you said, it's like my goal or like what I'm passionate about is loving Mother Earth. And these are like the three pillars or whatever that help me do that, like that allow me to do that. And so it's like, who cares? It's like, of course you're going to hear messaging and think like, if you look at marketing, it's like, you need to be specific. And yes, like you can still be specific, but it's like being the whole part of yourself that you're really passionate about and like tying that together is also important. And doing things in your own way, like creating your own rules
Oh
around
yeah,
it
I
is
totally
also
have to
really
do stuff in
important.
my own way. Compromise. That's a growth edge of mine, just along with the tech savvy.
Awesome.
Well, I feel like that's a really good, like, I feel like I had some other things that I feel like we could have talked about, but I feel like just like, I love just kind of planting these, like, I'm funny laughing at my pun before I even say it, like planting the seeds with you of some of these things to think about as you start like considering how you are going to like take your business more public in authentic ways. Because I think that's like the crux of the question you asked is like staying really authentic, and I feel like we really touched on that today. So I kind of just want to like breathe and leave it at that, and like just ask you what some of your, or like, doesn't have to be some, it could be like, what are your biggest like action steps or takeaways from our conversation
Oh, yeah.
today?
I'm feeling a lot of action steps coming. I'm feeling like being authentic means that I don't have to keep like just leaving my Instagram business page just blank and just logos right now. Even though I don't necessarily have much like business content, I can be real about that and be like, this is where I'm at with it, and be authentic and share what I do know right now and what I am learning along the way. I feel like that's a great action step that I can start taking, and just to start making some connections on that level. Um, so yeah, that's like I think my biggest action item
I
I'm feeling.
Oh, I love that so much. Like I almost, as you were saying that, I'm like almost coming, like when you're sitting down to maybe write a caption for a post or whatever you're, whatever you're posting, is like getting behind the energy of not just like what you do and how you do it, but it's like, what do you stand for? And like get into that energy of like, what do I stand for? Like, what does not work in the world that I'm doing to change? And like getting into that energy and just start like getting like strength and energy behind that message. And like we talked about, like getting the energy behind the words that you're saying to start creating them in this reality. Like I absolutely love that. And so I'm very excited to see that all come to fruition in your accounts and in the manifesting of your bus and your business and all of that great stuff. Um, so just to wrap up, why don't you share with anyone who's listening how they can find you and how
Yes,
they can work with
beautiful.
you?
So the easiest way to find me is on Instagram, as I've been talking about. And so my personal account is simply.naturally.heather. And then my business account is the Golden Triangle Shop.
Love it. Thank you so much, Heather. This was so much fun and so valuable. I am really excited to
Thanks
share
for
this
letting
episode.
me be here.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Wasn't that conversation so amazing? I think for any of you who are listening who aren't quite there with starting your business, or you're thinking about starting a business, or you've just started a business, I just want you to know, and I hope you realize just how powerful even understanding your human design can be at such an early stage of your business. It's helpful at literally all stages. And I think understanding your true design and energetic blueprint can help you at every stage of that journey, and really like leaning into that to not just do things in the right way, because there's no such thing as the right way, but doing things like it's like validating and giving you confidence in the way that you're doing things, and helping you release all of those like constrictions or limiting beliefs that you might have. Like a big part of the conversation with Heather, or like the big one of the big ahas, as you could tell, was like not holding herself back, and like just being fully herself without like putting a dampener on her own energy. And that's how she's supposed to be. And I feel like that really came through, is like, yes, I can be myself. I can do this the way that I want to do this, and she will be successful without a doubt. I just absolutely love the business that she's building, and just the unique perspective she has on her urban gardening and loving Mother Earth, like that whole, the take of her entire business within the Golden Triangle. So I don't know if you've heard, but I'm actually launching a program specifically about how to create an unmistakable brand strategy that glows from the inside out by amplifying your own inner magic. It's going to help you systematically capture that beautiful heart of your brand, your own frequency, and implement it into your own unique, comprehensive, and multisensory brand, soulpreneur brand experience. The program is called Radiance, and the link is below in the episode description. If you learned something new or you resonated with what I said or what we said here on this podcast, I would absolutely love to meet you. So share your favorite part of the episode on your Instagram stories and tag me at Brie Kirk, or send me a DM on Instagram and say hello and share what you learned. I cannot wait to hear from you.